Hey everybody, Noah Church here. I'm here with Sean Musil, founder of the Freedom Journey in Utah in the United States. Sean, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I'm looking forward to it.
Why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're all about?
Great. So like Noah said, from here in Utah in the United States, was addicted to porn from 12 to 19, so junior high, high school, first year of college. Really struggled with that. I am a Christian. That's a big part of my story as well. But frankly, I think this is the important part of my story to say is that I just was really frustrated with the answers that I was always getting when I eventually reached out for help. Felt like it was kind of a softball pitch answer. I felt like I got the same thing from everybody. And long story short, I'm 24. I've been walking in freedom for 4.5 years now. I've been helping guys one-on-one around the issue of struggling stopping watching pornography for 3+ years, doing a lot of one-on-one, going to coffee shops or doing video Skype meetings. And now we're to the point where at the beginning of this year, 2017, I kind of formalized it and started the Freedom Journey, which is my nonprofit. We do a couple things. We do one-on-one mentoring. We do small group online mentoring. We do a lot of public speaking. I am, like I said, a Christian, so I do a lot of speaking at churches and different events. The Freedom Journey itself is a non-religious nonprofit, though. And then we do a lot of online content, social media, videos. I also personally do a daily vlog that I upload videos literally every day of my life, documenting growing my nonprofit, and then also sharing like little tidbits of wisdom or whatever that I get after I meet with somebody or doing research on some things, and like to really provide value specifically for people who are struggling stopping watching porn. Really like to give a lot of content there. So that's the the ESPN highlight version of who I am and what I do.
Do you feel like you're constantly learning new things about this issue and this journey with the people you work with?
It's ridiculous. Every day, especially as we move towards like a virtual reality, AI, haptic feedback, like as this industry continues to move that way, I'm just really trying to stay ahead of the curve and on the ball specifically in that area, because I really see this whole industry going that direction. But yeah, literally every day, I actually get Google alerts every day for stuff around this topic, and so I literally get 15 plus articles or newspaper clippings or whatever it is in my inbox every day, and I'm so lame because I read all of them every day.
The world moves pretty fast these days, doesn't it?
It's ridiculous, so much. I mean, Drake apparently got a porn star pregnant, or she says so. He doesn't think it. Anyways, there's a lot of news on this. Always staying up to date as best as possible. Luckily, I live in Utah, which is kind of like a hub for this issue, or for helping. I don't know, it's kind of both, I guess, but there's a lot of resources out here, so I'm able to get connected with a lot of these organizations, and a lot of the people that are putting out research and content that are here. I'm able to really connect with them and do one-on-one meetings and hear about what they're doing, how they're helping, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Utah has been passing some interesting legislation. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Kind of no comment. I'll give a half comment on it.
Okay.
I think awareness is really important. I think if for example if you're selling something and you have the best product in the world but nobody knows about it, doesn't matter how good your product is, right? So the same thing, but in reverse on this, if this truly is something that is harmful as what some of the research says, as what my anecdotal, personal experience says, if it really is that harmful, then I think awareness is absolutely essential. Now, I'm not into political legislation, to be honest. I'm not an expert at all in those areas. So I will say this. I think if we can educate people and let people know that this is harmful, that it's affecting people's lives, that's a big part of what we do with the Freedom Journey. I'm not so much out there broadcasting, hey, you should stop watching porn and all this kind of thing. While I think that you should, my whole goal is, look, I just want to help people who are struggling stopping watching porn. right? Like, that's my heart. Look, if you want to stop and you're struggling, come talk to me. You know, we have one-on-one, we have small groups, you know, like come speak at an event or whatever. Like, I'm all about helping people who are struggling stopping, and that's where I keep my focus. I try not to get too sidetracked with everything else that's going on. I try to kind of stay in my lane. So, hey, legislation happens. You know, I know that's going to happen. There's other groups out there that are far more informed than I am. I don't want to give a uninformed opinion on that.
Well, from what I know, the first legislation they passed was just recognizing pornography addiction and pornography use as a potential public health crisis, something that we should be paying attention to. It wasn't a law or anything. It was just a call to pay attention to this issue and perhaps look at doing more legislation in the future. And then I think they passed recently a bit of legislation that allowed people who are harmed by pornography addiction and their porn habit to sue websites that did not adequately prevent minors from viewing their content.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. That's my understanding of it as well as, you know, I believe in somewhere in Europe. I'm not super sure where this is at, but they're passing similar laws that the Queen is looking at. So once again, I'm out of my area of expertise right now.
Okay.
Don't quote me on this.
Yeah, I heard just at the end of April in the UK, they decided to pass age verification laws, which requires porn websites and porn production companies to adequately verify the age of their consumers with third-party age verification companies, like it's already done with gambling websites online, because you don't want 13-year-olds gambling away their parents' money. You don't want them watching deviant pornography online either.
Right, for sure.
So when you go to these public speaking events and you're speaking to the crowd, are you specifically addressing the people in the crowd who are struggling, or do you also warn them of the potential dangers, or what does that look like?
Great, I love this. So I like to think of myself and with the Freedom Journey as kind of an 80-20 thing. I think 80% of what we do is focus on recovery. It's on helping the person who's struggling. 20% is on education. So I'll do parent workshops, like I just did one this weekend, just sharing about hey, frankly, a lot of parents aren't aware of some of the technological stuff that's going on. It does advance so quickly, and so I don't necessarily blame them for it. But for example, did you know Snapchat has a hidden feature section where you can put a password and hide photos that you've saved in there, or that kind of thing. So I do a lot of education with parents whenever I do talk about that. I speak at a lot of churches. I'll do sermon-esque type speaking things. But a lot, I really relate with the person who's struggling because that was me, right? Yeah. That was who I was. I really wish, if I could flip a switch, that whole 7 years that I struggled, if I could have flipped a switch and then I wouldn't have struggled with this anymore, I would have done that every day of those 7 years, right? I literally wish I could have just stopped. And so I really resonate and really relate with the person struggling. So I tend to focus there. However, there are so many, porn impacts more than just the viewer, right? It impacts the spouse or significant other of the viewer, the family, the friends. I've been doing some research in the last 8 days at the time that we're recording this. There have been over 40 child porn arrests or child porn things in the news, right? And so we hear that, and that's more on the extreme end of this. Frankly, that breaks my heart, right? I hear those and I'm just like it hurts, and I hate hearing that. But once again, those are more on the extreme. But the thing is you have to start somewhere, right? That started somewhere. For most people, I would go out of my way to say 100%, but maybe there's somebody out there that wouldn't fit in this category. I don't know. Most people start at something more soft and go towards that.
Did you see the article just published on Daily Mail about a warning that online porn addiction can lead men to start viewing child abuse images?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I'll send that to you after this, and I'll link it in the description below as well. I made a video about this 6 months ago, warning this could happen because I'd seen it happen before, and it can destroy people's lives. It can ruin their families. There's no bigger pariah in our modern developed world than someone who looks at child abuse, sexual images. And not all of them are born pedophiles only attracted to children. A lot of it is escalation through deviant types of pornography until their tolerance is so high that they need something
I like
so
to think
extreme
about
and
it
shocking like that.
Like I think about it like a shower. Like I take hot showers, and so when I start a shower, and I know there's a whole group of you out there who probably take cold showers and all that kind of thing, but so like what I do with showers is I get it to a really comfortable temperature to start, then I'll get in, and slowly throughout the shower I'll warm it up, right, and it'll get hotter and hotter and hotter, and to the point at the end it's usually pretty hot. And the thing is, I would never start my shower at that point, at that super hot point. I would never start there. I start at something less, and I slowly turn it up. And I think that's an exact parallel with what happens in this area, where it might start with the Sports Illustrated swimsuit or the I don't know, YouTube videos or whatever, but there is a chance for you to escalate to this, right? We're not saying that because you watch porn, you're going to watch child porn. We're not saying that, but there's a greater chance that if you start here, you're going to get there, right? And once again, that's the far extreme. I don't tend to focus very much on that. But your original question was, how much of my time do I communicate, or like, what do I communicate when I go out and speak? It's mostly helping people get resources for recovery. Since we're 80% focused on recovery, that's most of what we do. I also really like to recognize the spouses of those who are struggling, parents of those who are struggling, friends, and I really try to give resources to them because frankly, I think they're the most underserved population in this area. I think we have a lot of resources out there for those who are struggling now, and this whole industry is moving, growing forward, but for the spouses especially, and I just think they're the most overlooked, and it really hurts my heart. I should say significant others, not just spouses, but there
can be a lot of betrayal trauma there.
Absolutely.
The hallmark of addiction is lying and being untruthful. And I've spoken with so many partners of porn addicts who just, their trust in them was broken, and it takes so long and it's so hard to rebuild that trust.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is difficult. I just think they're so underserved, and so when I go out and speak, I really try to specifically address those areas as well and really equip them with some resources. Because that's not like my direct passion, because there's a level of separation there. I can't exactly relate. I more relate to the person struggling, but I want to recognize that because there's so much hurt and there's so much pain, and there's still, frankly, is a lot of taboo and shame around this issue. I like to think of myself as best as I can as a shame breaker, right? Like I just think shame is just super inappropriate for this issue, and want to help people grow in their freedom. That's what it's about. It's a process. It's something we grow in, you know?
So I get this question sometimes from people I work with, which is, say someone is living in a very strict religious household, it could be Christian or Orthodox Jewish or Islamic, and they're struggling with this issue, but they're pretty sure that if they tell anybody that they'll be ostracized. What do you recommend that those people do? You
know what? So I guess kind of what we're doing is we're weighing the consequences here. Do I not tell anybody and struggle and live under this fear? Or do I go out on a limb and tell somebody and potentially be ostracized? Now, I can't speak to every situation. Obviously, there's some that are more extreme than others, kind of like how we were making that contrast earlier. But, I really believe there's 3 things, maybe 4 things that are absolutely essential for accountability for somebody to help in this. I think first thing is that they have to be in your community. You see them on some kind of a semi-regular basis. Second thing, I think they have to care about you. Like you have to have some kind of a friendship. Third thing, I think you have to be willing to help in this area. Now, notice I'm just saying that they have to be willing. They don't have to know everything. And I think the fourth thing, to me, I think it's really important that they be the same gender. I might get some controversy on that, but that's just been my experience. I think those 4 things are absolutely essential for this issue. Primarily the first 3. The fourth one, I think there's some, the gender one, there's some flux on that. I imagine we're hitting an audience that hits a variety of spectrums, so I don't want to say that has to be there. But anyways, I think those first 3 are absolutely essential. You find somebody in those 3 things, maybe that could be outside of your religious community. Doesn't necessarily have to be within that. Finding somebody that you feel like you can trust in those and really start to disclose. I think healing really happens in community when we can talk with others and we can get around others and can relate. I think it's really important to have somebody who's a few steps ahead of you and can kind of point you in those directions, but also to have somebody right beside you who's also struggling and also moving forward, and you guys can help each other as well. So, man, I mean, if you can find somebody that fits those categories, that meets those first three requirements, that's a little bit ahead of you, as well as maybe somebody that's beside you, I think you can get some really good help.
Would you recommend maybe like testing the waters, like first confiding that you're having some troubling sexual thoughts without like saying that you have a pornography addiction, and see what the reaction is? Or would you just recommend going all out?
Man, I mean, I think it's an awesome question, but it's so individual. Like it's so individual. Like I think of my situation, and what I did is I just frankly just told my dad, and we had a good enough relationship that I was able to. And once again, I came from a Christian context that was like, okay, well, let's go talk with your pastor about this, and let's go walk through this together. And so I luckily had an open enough situation that I could communicate that. But I get that some people, it's two-part. It's, do you think that you can't do that when in reality you actually can? When in reality your community, like, you actually could do that, but you just think that doing that would be, you'd be ostracized or whatever? Or do you know that that's going to happen? You need to differentiate.
You've seen it happen before.
Like okay, if that happened to your cousin Johnny, right? Like if you saw that happen before, okay, maybe you have more credence here. Then, you need to differentiate. Are you just living in fear? I'm not a big fan of operating out of fear. I'm not a fan of making decisions based out of fear. So you need to really evaluate. Is this really something that could happen? Maybe. Or do I know that it's going to happen? And you need to outweigh the potential risk and the benefit. If not, like feel free to talk to me or Noah, right? Come talk with us, and maybe we can talk with you about your specific situation, and maybe we can provide some further individual help there.
So for those people who want to talk to you, where can they find you online?
Nice lead in. So our website's thefreedomjourney.org. We have a contact form on our website. We're on all of the social medias. You can also send me personally an email, Sean, Sean, at thefreedomjourney.org.
Okay, I'll put those in big bold letters across the screen. And
bam, Sean at Freedom Journey.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about your own story, because you've touched on aspects of it. You said you started using when you were about 12.
Yep.
And was it almost immediately thereafter that you realized this wasn't something that should be in your life, or did it take a few years?
Yeah, and this is an interesting conversation to talk about, like, okay, was this more of a cultural thing of growing up in a Christian household that, frankly, I think a lot of, not all, but a lot of Christianity's done a bad job teaching in this area, that either, like, sex is all bad or it's super bad, and then you get married, and then all of a sudden the switch flips and it's good. Like I just think we've done a really bad job teaching on this historically. So, like, we could talk about, well, I mean, it's for some reason it's hard for me to go back and really know what I felt, but like I knew I shouldn't be doing it, but my motive as to why I shouldn't be doing it, I'm not totally sure. I've always been a person who has a natural lean towards compassion and caring for others. And I never got into any violent porn or anything like that, any kind of abuse, like physical abuse or anything. That was always just, I just literally never was even curious about that. And I wonder how much of that is just my natural leniency, like my natural lean towards caring and compassion for others. So we could talk about, like I initially knew that I shouldn't be watching it. But to what I would attribute that, whether that was my, growing up in a Christian household, in a Christian context, which I still am in that situation, still am a follower of Jesus today, whether it's that or whether it's, just a natural leniency towards compassion or something in me that just said this wasn't right. It'd be hard for me to identify exactly what it was, but I for sure knew that I shouldn't be watching it. For sure.
And had you, before you started using or while you were using, did you ever hear about pornography from your family or from your pastor or anything like that? Was it ever talked about?
No, I mean, like not from anybody around me. It's and still even today, it's still such a taboo thing that, last year, the Barna Group and Josh McDowell came out with a study that said that only 7 to 9% of churches report that they have any resource for this issue. So once again, I fit into a Christian context, and so I actually do a lot of calling of churches and meeting with pastors and that kind of thing. And I've heard this from some people. Tell me if this shocks you. This shocked me at first, and still frankly does sometimes. I've heard this from some pastoral leaders that say, "Oh yeah, that doesn't happen in my church." I'm like,
well,
okay, like I just don't think you think it happens. Like the reality is statistics. I mean, it's everywhere.
People don't wear a sign around on their chest saying like I'm secretly a porn addict. It's hard to tell.
Right. And, you know, I say this a lot with the people that I talk with, especially when I go out and speak. Like, there's not really any outward signs for somebody who struggles with porn. Like I feel like if you're a meth addict, smile and I could probably tell. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe not in every situation, but I feel like with other ones, you know, you think of addiction and maybe there's some thoughts that come to your mind as to what that looks like. But with pornography, I mean, just with the struggle with this, like, there's no outward signs. Like, I was a really good Christian kid, right? Like people looked up to me in a lot of aspects, and I was in a lot of leadership roles and started a Bible study at my public high school. Like on the outside, you would have no idea that every day just really struggling with this issue. And frankly, like, I think we need to do a better job of helping people get past the idea of shame and really like understanding the difference in shame and guilt. I think shame says like who you are is bad, whereas guilt says what you did was bad. I think we need to make sure those are separate, and we need to look at how we communicate to the people that we love who might struggle with this, or frankly, how we communicate with ourselves. You know, like post, like watching porn or whatever. Like, we need to understand how we communicate to ourselves. Are the things that I'm saying to myself fostering shame? And if so, like, frankly, I don't think that's an appropriate thing for you to do. Like, I don't think that's a helpful thing for you to do.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah, if your thought process after a relapse is, oh man, I made a mistake, I don't know how that happened, like, what led up to it, how can I keep that from happening again, I feel really bad right now, that can be a positive force. But if you're thinking, I'm such a piece of crap,
right,
I'm a sinner, like, God hates me,
dang it,
whatever, then you're just feeling bad about yourself. And what do porn addicts do to feel better about themselves? They use more porn.
It's a cycle.
So it tends not to be a very productive cycle.
It's a cycle, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you were how old when you told your dad about your struggles?
Talk about awkward, by the way. Actually, I'll even say this. Before I told my dad, my brother caught me watching porn. He's 3 years older than me. And that was awkward. And even more awkward, he didn't tell me till a few days later, or till the next day that he caught me. And so that was just like, oh my gosh. Anyways, I told my dad, I was probably like 17 or something. And of course it was just, like people tend to ask me all the time, like, what happened? Like, what changed for you? Like, what was your big moment? And I shared, like, frankly, it was just a lot of little moments that just really built up, you know? Like have you ever seen those pictures where like somebody can create a beautiful picture out of like sand, or like I've seen people do it with like jelly beans or M&Ms, or it's like a black background and they make these beautiful like drawings or pictures out of them. And what I think about it is that's just a lot of little things that create something beautiful and big. Right? It's a lot of little things that made something incredible. And that's what my story is. Like, I didn't necessarily have like a really big significant moment that really shifted in my life. It wasn't like me telling my dad or a pastor or something, like or joining a program. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just a lot of little things over the period of my life that really contributed to make one big beautiful thing.
You're filled with excellent metaphors, Sean. You're like a metaphor fountain.
I love it. Actually, one of my strengths and my strength finder is ideation. And if you look at ideation, it's really like I love to break things down into concepts. And I'm a very visual learner, and so I try to paint visual pictures for everybody else. Because I find.
So were you afraid of what your dad's reaction would be when you told him?
Oh, for sure. It was like one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Oh. It was hard. It was like. And it was funny, like I tried a few times before I actually eventually did it. And frankly, like we should say this. I told him, and I still struggled for 2 years after that.
And did you keep in communication with your dad and your pastor during that time? Like, I'm still struggling with this, or?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Like with a pastor at that time, it was, yeah. I mean, we would talk about it, but once again, like, frankly, it was just frustrated at some of the answers that I was getting, and felt like I was getting the same thing from everybody. And I mean, like, natural logic says that if I have a problem and you give me a solution, and I apply your solution to my problem, and my problem still exists, then your solution didn't work, right? Like, that's just natural logic.
Yeah.
And so, frankly, a lot of the solutions that I get were faith-based ones, and so it began to attack my faith, and which, once again, is just very critical, like very important to me and to my life. And I think here's why it was a big deal. It's because I was presented with these faith-based solutions, which I do believe are very important, by the way. I think they're very important. But I was given these faith-based solutions, and they were...
With these, like, pray more and read your Bible more?
Yeah,
or
like do
go
those
talk
things,
to your pastor?
like talking with your pastor, praying more, like, you know, reading your Bible, memorizing, whatever, like those things. So here's what we need to talk about with this. Once again, this is from my perspective. I think they're important components of the solution, but they are not the totality of the solution. And they were presented as the totality of the solution, meaning you apply these things and you're good.
And it sounds like that's what you want to change with the Freedom Journey, right?
So that's a big part. Is like I just spoke at a church yesterday in Colorado, and I shared with them, like, look, like, you're not just a spiritual person. Once again, I might differ with some of the audience on this, but once again, just take it with a grain of salt. This is my perspective. Like, you're not just a spiritual person, you also have a physical body, okay? So let's make some physical or some practical changes, right? You also have, like, thoughts and emotions, okay? How does porn affect your thoughts, your emotions, right? Like let's learn, there's also, you're a social individual, right? Like it's going again.
Okay. All right. I just want a few hot tips for someone who's struggling and has never reached 30 days porn-free. How would you suggest they get to those 30 days?
Don't focus on getting 30 days. That's how you do it. You start one day at a time. You say, how can I help? How can I not, like, grow in freedom today? What can I do? Like, even if you need to break it out into chunks and say, like, okay, it's 9 a.m., I work at 12. How can I get from 9 to 12 and grow and not fall to this issue today? Like, I fell so many times because I was so focused on getting to a certain point, 30 days, you know, one week, 30 days, 6 months, 1 year. I was so focused on that, and when I fell, that would further lead my shame, because I was like, man, I didn't make that big goal that I set for myself. Yep. Frankly, like, you need to just focus a day at a time, what you can do today. Don't even think about tomorrow. Like, I literally wouldn't even think about it, and I'd say, okay, Sean, today is, you know, whatever the date is, how can I focus today and grow today? Like, I think of it on a macro and a micro level. So the micro is like, right now, today, specifically, what can I do? But also on the macro level, what do I want to build in my life? Like, why do I want to stop this? Like, let's get some real, let's really think about what it would look like to have 5 years without watching porn. What would my life look like? And to allow to really, like, let your mind go and to think about those things. Maybe write some of those things down. Maybe jot some of those things out. Maybe making, like, some milestones that you could hit. Look at it from a micro level, and then focus on the macro, or look at it from a macro level, and focus on the micro and how I can build those things in me today. That'd be my advice.
So not just focus on stopping, but on what you can build and the positive things in your life.
Look, recovery is more about addition than subtraction.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about subtracting things from your life. Subtracting things from your life. It's about adding things into your life as well. One last analogy that I'll leave with this. I think about it like gas station hot dogs. I think they're like the grossest thing in the world, to be honest. I don't like gas station hot dogs. But let's talk about why. I don't like them because I've tasted something better. Now, if the only thing I'd ever had in my life was gas station hot dogs, they might be okay if that was the only kind of hot dog I ever had. But I've had better hot dogs, so therefore gas station hot dogs are super gross to me. So here's what I'm talking about. Let's allow porn, masturbation, all that stuff to become gas station hot dogs because we're tasting things in our life that are far better than that. We're adding things into our life, that we're growing in a greater life satisfaction. You know, we're growing in these things so much that we know that porn has become the gas station hot dog in my life.
Another great analogy. One last question for you, Sean. As a Christian man, I'm just curious, what do you think about during recovery masturbating to fantasy or just a sensation, or even after recovery? Do you have any thoughts about whether masturbation can be like a positive or a neutral force in someone's life? Or
You know, I might differ for some people on here. I don't think masturbation is a good thing, to be totally honest. Once again, I might differ with some people. That's fine. That's whatever. Look, masturbation is sex with yourself. I mean, at its basic core, like you have a sex drive and you have an outlet for porn or masturbation or self-control or sex or whatever. Like literally, it's just an outlet of your sex drive. And I feel like I haven't come across any super definitive, really good research on this. But once again, coming from my Christian background, which serves as the underlaying behind a lot of these things that I communicate, is I just think it's sex with yourself, and I think we have things ingrained into us, such as like nocturnal emissions or wet dreams or whatever. Like I think we have things built into us that'll really help that. I think there's a lie that sex is a need. This is good. Listen to this. I'm excited to share this. I think we believe a lie that sex is a need, and out of that, we allow that to excuse our behaviors. Okay, so I think this is a fundamental ground level thing that we allow that to make excuses and rationalizations. Here's why I think we think sex is a need. Because we have 4 basic drives that everybody has at some level: food, thirst, sleep, sex. So 3 of those are essential for life, for like living life: food, water, sleep. Like you have to have those for life to live today. You have to have sex for life to continue, for procreation, right? You know, whether we look at this from a creationist or evolutionist like perspective, it doesn't matter to me. The point is that these are all natural drives that we have, and because sex is you have a sex drive and it's a natural, recurring, consistent drive, we allow that to fuel the lie. Once again, I believe this is a lie, that sex is a need, and therefore we believe that, and that allows us to create excuses such as, I have to masturbate. I got a question from somebody the other day that says, like, it was something like, it was on Instagram, and they were like, how do you let it off or whatever? You haven't watched porn in 4.5 years. Do you have a wife? And I was like, bro, like, really the root of your question is like that I have to do that. Like that is an essential, like there's no other choice. And like that, I think that's a lie that it's a need. I think if we understand that it's a really strong want, it's a really strong desire, extremely strong, and it's natural and it's recurring and it's gonna come up again, like on a semi-consistent or consistent level. If we understand that, then I think that will really change how we view this issue. We talk about masturbation and stuff.
Well, thank you, Sean. Everybody, Sean Musil from thefreedomjourney.org, right?
That's it.
Thank you so much for joining me. And if you'd like to see Sean's interview of me, you can head on over to his channel, which is...
Sorry. Oh. So it'll be on my personal channel, which is Sean Musil. Sean Musil, if you look up Sean Musil, The Daily Journey is my documenting of daily growing this nonprofit. You'll see our interview there. Go check it out. There's probably a link somewhere on the screen that knows.
I'll put it in the description, and subscribe to Sean's channel. Check his content out.
Awesome. Thank you, Noah.
Thanks, Sean.